kiddos. Today we're going to learn a little bit more about clocks. You're very good so far with your clock times, but we're going to talk a little bit again and review so we understand. This is my little mouse that we are going to call Minute Mouse. Can you say hello to Minute Mouse? Minute Mouse, can you say hello to them? Squeak, squeak, squeak. Good job, Minute Mouse. And this is Mr. Hour. He loves to be first. He is very much the kind of person that would be the line leader in line every time because he always wants to be first. And I know some of you know how that is, wanting to be first all the time. That is Mr. Hour. So when we tell our times, we need to remember that Mr. Hour always likes to be first. So I'm going to take Mr. Hour and put him on the short hour hand because Mr. Hour is not a tall man. He is a short man. You can see that his hour hand is right there, so we can see where he's pointing. And we're going to take Minute Mouse. I'm going to take her over here. She's really heavy, so she may make it spin a little slower than usual. And this is a Judy clock. I love Judy clocks, and if you have not bought a little clock for you to learn by, this might be a good one to consider, because a Judy clock, when you move the minute hand, the Judy clock is built for the gears to move the hour hand, because when the minute hand moves, it moves the hour hand a little by little throughout the hour. And that's what a Judy clock does. Great clock to work by. I also want to remind you, children, that a Judy clock gives you some help, and that the minutes that Minute Mouse needs are marked in yellow and by 5-minute parts or increments. This is Minute Mouse's time. Mr. Hour, on the other hand, he's going to use all the big numbers. When we look at Mr. Hour's numbers, he's going to use all these big numbers right here. Minute Mouse is going to use all the little check marks in between and the bubbles. Okay, let me set Minute Mouse back on here. It's fun to be home to do this because I get to use all this fun stuff and use my imagination. Now, a lot of you will know just by looking at that is 4 o'clock. We like to say in my class, 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It's fun to say o'clock. O'clock's a fun little word. So, let me open the cap of my marker here. And let's write 4 o'clock. Remember, Mr. Hour is always what? He's always first. So here you see he's pointing to 4. 4 is his number, and he will always be first. And Minute Mouse is pointing to the o'clock hour, which is straight up. It says 60. That means it's at the 60-minute mark. And when we say o'clock, you hear the word O. That's because it can be written like 2 lovely O's. Okay. How do we know that this is not just the number 400? Do we usually tell time and say it's 400 o'clock? No, we don't usually say 400 o'clock, do we? Nope. We have to put 2 marks in between Mr. Hour's time and Minute Mouse's time. We'll call them 2 buttons. There's 2 buttons right between them. There's 4 for Mr. Hour, button, o'clock. Excuse me. Now, let's tell another o'clock. For this hand to move, remember I said minute hand has to move. Do you see it moving a little bit as I turn? Do you see Mr. Hour moving? Now he does not move as fast as Minute Mouse, and we know that mice are very quick, so that makes sense. Alright, Minute Mouse is going to go all the way back up to 12 again. This means she has completed a whole 60 minutes. 60 minutes are in 1 hour. Say that with me. 60 minutes in 1 hour. 60 minutes in 1 hour. So here we have Mr. Hour and we have Minute Mouse. Who goes first? Mr. Hour always goes first, and he is pointing at the 5. So let's write down 5 first, because he is first. And how do we say o'clock? O'clock. It's pointing straight up. Straight up means o'clock. So we're going to write o'clock. Okay, 5 o'clock. Remember, the buttons in between tells you the difference between Mr. Hour and Minute Mouse. 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Now let's look at another number. We've done lots of o'clocks, but let's take this Minute Mouse and let's turn it all the way to pointing to 3. Okay? Now, if it's pointing to 3, Minute Mouse is not going to say 3 because that's Mr. Hour's number. She's going to say what is written right there. 15. She's going to say 15. And what about Mr. Hour? Oh dear. He's not really pointing at 5, is he? Then again, he's not really pointing at 6. Here's the trick, children. If he's not quite to 6, that means he still has to be part of 5. All through here, he's still part of 5, 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 until he's directly onto 6. He is still part of 5. Okay? That whole space here all represents 5. So if he's not to 6, he's still at 5. So who goes first, Minute Mouse or Mr. Hour? Mr. Hour. What are we going to write down for his time? 5. Let's write down 5. And our 2 buttons to separate Mr. Hour and Minute Mouse. And let's look at Minute Mouse. Where is she pointing to? Well, she's pointing to 3, but remember, we don't use that 3. We actually use those little ticks right in between. And that says what? 15. So let's write down 15. Here she's at 15. Now, if Minute Mouse were to move down, 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 down to here, see the shadow covered up so much, there we go. She's moving down to here. She's no longer at 15. She's at 30. Now, most clocks are not going to have these little bubbles. The beginner clocks, the learning clocks, those will have those bubbles. But most clocks, you're going to actually have to count. Now, I meant to do that here, but let's go ahead and show you. When you count around a clock for minutes, you're going to count by 5s. You'll start at 1, and you'll count 5, 10. Now, why would you do that? Why would you count by 5s? Because every minute in between, starting right here, is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. But to make it so much easier so you don't have to count every single little letter, every number, you can start at 1 and just count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So here, Minute Mouse, get off Mr. Hour. Oh, she fell over. She's made of iron, so she's very heavy. Minute Mouse is pointing straight down to the 6, which is 30. Now, who gets to go first in telling their time? Is it Mr. Hour or Minute Mouse? To write it down, we have to write down Mr. Hour first. Now let's look down here. He's past the 5, but he's not quite to his next number, 6. So if he's not quite there, he's still at 5. Let's write it down. And don't forget your button or your dot. Minute Mouse is at 30. She goes next. 30. Okay. 5:30. 5:30. So if it's straight up, let me see if I can move Minute Mouse here. If the minute hand is straight up, it's o'clock. Straight to the 3, it's 15. Straight down, it's 30. Straight up, put your arms straight up. All of you kiddos out there, put your arms straight up and say, o'clock. All of you kiddos out there, put your arms straight out to the right and say 15. And now put your arms straight down and say 30. Now this is also a very important mark to remember, but we're going to work on that next time. Right now, I want you to say these with me. O'clock, 15, 30. Do it again. O'clock, 15, 30. Put your arms straight up. Straight up. O'clock, straight out. 15, straight down. 30. Did you do it? Mr. Hour's easy because his numbers are just right here in big black letters. But with Mr. Mouse, with little Minute Mouse, it's a little harder because you have to actually think of by fives, and you need to remember your quick points. 12, 3, 6, and 9 will be your next one. Okay? Now, before you go, I wanted to ask you if you remembered that song, Little Bunny Foo Foo. Do you know that song? Little bunny foo foo, hopping through the forest, picking up the field mice and bopping them on the head. That's where I got this mouse. He was one of the bopped mouses. The mice, one of the bopped mice that I found. Can you say, oh, poor little mouse? All right, say squeak, squeak. All right, have a good night.